Good evening, this is the second video blog from the Senior Common Room of the University of Bath on the 9th of February 2009. What I'm going to focus on this evening is the idea of educational influence. That what I want to do is to persuade you, I think, that learning, whilst being crucial in education, is not in itself educational. That there is a big difference between an educational influence in learning and something which is learnt. And the big difference for me is this: that for anything to count as being educational, it must relate to the value-laden activity of education. We can learn many things, and many of those need not be educational. Indeed, if you look around the world at the moment, you can see that people are learning to actually kill each other. They're learning extremely destructive relationships. Now, this is not what I would count as educational. For something to be educational, it must relate to values that actually carry hope for the future of humanity, and not those which actually destroy humanity. Now, the other reason that I actually focus on the idea of influence, and in particular educational influence, is that no matter what I do, for example with my students, it is not a causal relationship. I cannot determine what my students learn. Whatever my students learn, they must exercise their own imaginations and creativity in terms of what I do, but they must mediate what I do with their imagination and creativity in their learning. Now, I hope I've been very clear on that point, because for me to see something as educational, I must see that the individual has exercised their own creativity and imagination in actually learning something from what I am actually doing. The other point that links my first video blog on living educational theory to this idea of influence is that I see that you can create your own living educational theory as an explanation for your own educational influence in your own learning, in the learning of others, and in the learning of the social, cultural formations in which we live and work. Now, this is really vital in terms of the knowledge base of education. I'm saying that the idea of you explaining your educational influence in learning, and that means your own as well as your students, is really vital in transforming the knowledge base of education into a form of educational knowledge that can create valid explanations for what individuals are doing as they exert an educational influence in their own learning and the learning of others. Good night. Good evening. In this third video blog from the Senior Common Room of the University of Bath, I want to focus attention on something that is right at the heart of the creation of living educational theories. Now, this is to do with your own values, the values that you use to make sense of the life that you're living, the values you use to give meaning and purpose to your existence. And we call those ontological values. Now, what I want to focus on is the importance of your own I in a question of the kind: how do I improve what I am doing? Now, this question was one that I asked myself in my very first class that I taught in 1967 in a comprehensive school in London. I found myself wanting to do better for the pupils in my care. So I've explored that question as part of my research program of the last 36 years. How do I improve what I am doing? And the I in the question, for example, when I was living and teaching in Erkenwald School in Barking in London, I videotaped myself. This was in 1971. And looking at what I was doing, I could see that I was not doing what I believed I was doing. I thought I had got inquiry learning going in my classroom, in which the pupils could ask their own questions and I would provide answers to their questions. But as I looked at the videotape, I could see that I was structuring the resources in a way that did not actually permit or support them in forming their own questions. That I was in fact giving them the questions. And this was a tremendous shock to me, because I could then see myself on the videotape as a living contradiction. The I in the question, how do I improve my practice, was actually holding certain values and at the same time negating those in my practice. So when I ask questions now of the kind, how do I improve my practice, I'm very aware of trying to get some kind of data on what I'm doing so I can check the validity of my understandings of what I'm doing against the data. So when I look at the generation of an individual's living educational theory, I look for the clarity with which the person is using the values that they espouse, the values that they claim are giving meaning and purpose to their lives. And in this process, I often use an action inquiry cycle, which I will come to on my third blog, to help to clarify the meanings of those ontological values that we use to give meaning and purpose to our existence. And they are particularly important within education and the educational development of ourselves and our students. Thank you.